Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, before we go any further today, as you all know, I'm a huge music fan. And I'm currently a little bit down because I go to the Glastonbury Music Festival every June, and this year they're having a year off to let the farm recover because it is a working farm. But last night I saw David Byrne in concert, who I'm sure many of you will know, used to be the lead singer of the Talking Heads. And it's one of those nights, although I was looking forward to it, I had to kind of force myself to go, you know, where you have to prize yourself from your favourite armchair, especially because it's World Cup time at the moment. But man, after seeing hundreds of gigs and some of the most famous acts in the world, this one ended up being one of the best concerts I've ever seen. And I say concerts because it was so much more than that. It was like surreal performance art, theatre, and there were so many other different words to describe it, but it was like nothing I've ever seen. It was simply amazing. So if David Byrne is playing anywhere near you, I strongly urge you to go and see it, even if you're not the world's biggest fan, because I just guarantee you're not going to see anything else like it out there. And I also saw Serge from Kasabian at the bar as well, but I did chicken out of asking for a photo. But enough of my tales of nights out and watching concerts. This is a tech show, not a music show, right? I hear you saying that. So thankfully, today's podcast is actually about customer data platforms, CDPs, which are a big focus in the area of marketing in 2018, or MarTech, marketing technology, because brands are doing their best now to try and pull out the data that they have to create those better customer experiences that we're demanding as consumers, but also do it in a timely manner. So I invited Patrick Reynolds, he's the CMO of SessionM, onto the show today so we can dive into the current state of CDPs and also how the rise of AI doesn't mean the fall of marketing jobs. And I also want to find out what these platforms mean for both brands and consumers alike. Now, SessionM is a customer data and engagement platform that handles complex, large-scale personal data sets for some of the largest organisations in the world, such as Nike, L'Oreal, Coke, TGI Fridays, and that's just to name a few. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Boston so we can speak with Patrick Reynolds, and he's going to tell us all about SessionM and how their platform unifies customer profiles into a single record, but without being creepy. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Patrick. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
I am the Chief Marketing Officer for a company based in Boston in the US called SessionM, and we are a customer data and engagement platform.
Now, for anyone listening that's new to the world that we're going to talk about today, which is customer data plans, can you bring them up to speed and tell me exactly what they are, why they are so important now, and also how your CDP solution at SessionM is different from others out there?
Yeah, so a customer data platform is a means by which a company, a brand, a business can centralize all the information that it has on each individual customer into one single definitive record. So that is in stark contrast to maybe customer service database has one sort of version of who I am. Marketing silos may have one version of who I am. Point of sale may have a different version of who I am. So all those things are sort of disconnected, and often there's a lot of lag in between them. So what a CDP does is it centralizes all that data into one place so that there's one real-time definitive record for each and every customer. And what that does is it allows a business then to know kind of definitively who they're engaging with, what the lifetime value of that customer was, what the last sort of interaction with that customer was. And with all those things together, they can then decide what the next best action that the business should take with that customer is, which you can't do if you have all this sort of fragmentation of customer views.
Another topic that we've got to tackle today, of course, is the GDPR question, because I completely understand why it was created and how it was intended to protect users. But the reality from the point of view of myself and probably many people listening is they ended up receiving more emails than ever before. And now almost every website you visit pretty much says, let us track you or leave the site now and shut the door on your way out. But how do you see the current landscape and how will it evolve over the next few years, both from a business and a user point of view?
Yeah, it's funny. This whole GDPR thing is a little bit like some of the pharma ads that we get here in the US, at least. And I know it's definitely different globally, but you'll get an ad for, some sort of heart medication, let's just say, and it say, well, some of the side effects include, total dementia, bleeding out of your eyeballs, broken bones, severed limbs. And it's like, well, why am I doing this? So it's very kind of scary, some of the language around GDPR, but it's actually not that scary. And what it's done is I think, done a very good thing for both businesses and especially consumers, where it's elevated the conversation out of sort of the day-to-day marketing to at the executive, CEO, top of the house level saying, guys, what actually do we do with all this data we're collecting? And that has forced brands to put the data that they are collecting to use in service of delivering better experiences for the customers that are giving that data. So it's actually kind of, I think, going to be a valuable thing. And what it's going to do is it's going to bubble up to the top the question of, okay, I'm giving you a lot of my personal information. What do I get in return for that? Because what I think you'll find is, and I may be going a little bit on a limb here, is that people are going to voluntarily give even more information into the future if they get a return on investment that's commensurate with what they think they're giving. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So Spotify, big global brand. The more I interact with it, the more I give it information about what I like and what I don't like, the better that experience gets for me. Netflix would be another really good example of, I tell it passively and actively sort of what I watch, what genres I like, et cetera, and it makes recommendations that are better and better each time because it knows more and more about me through AI and machine learning, among other things. So I think that kind of quid pro quo, you're talking about a fair value exchange. If I give you information, company, you must deliver a better experience for me. And, and another really physical example would be Starbucks. I am quite comfortable personally letting Starbucks know where I am at all times, because Starbucks will then tell me where the nearest Starbucks is, and it will allow me to order in advance, go to that Starbucks, even if I've never been there, pick up my coffee, take no money out of my pocket, and be on my way. I'll do that because I get fair value in exchange. I won't do that if it just is another means of them dunning me with advertising that is uninformed, untargeted, and frankly uninspiring.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that there, because I think that personalised experience changes from which company we want to deal with. If you met somebody in the street and they just started asking you really intently personal questions and they're a complete stranger, you'd get quite creeped out by that. But if it's your doctor, if it's your bank, then it becomes more acceptable, doesn't it?
It really does, and it doesn't have to be as sort of lofty and highfalutin as your money or your health. It could just be these little day-to-day experiences, like your coffee, like your music, like your movies or your television entertainment. Another thing that I think you're seeing is, well, actually two things. So there's sort of the services economy that's erupting. And one service that I'm really kind of sweet on here is Stitch Fix. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I give a tremendous amount of information about what I like from a sort of aesthetic wardrobe clothing perspective. And it's almost like I feel like I need to lay down on the couch when I sort of sign up for it, because it's like, well, what do you think of this look? What do you think of that look? What does this mean to you? Do you see yourself in this color or that color? So I'm giving all this personal information for me, but in exchange, I get stuff that really literally and figuratively suits me. And I think there's tremendous value in that. I don't have to go to the store. They're doing it for me, but they can't fly blind. They have to know a bit about me. And then at the even more kind of macro level is, whether you're talking about Siri or you're talking about Alexa or Google Home or Nest, we are letting ML, machine learning and AI access more and more information all the time because we directly benefit from it. It tells us based off of where we are at that exact moment, how long it'll take to get us where we're going. It'll tell us the temperature where we are. It'll tell us if our lights are on. It'll tell us what that song was that just played. They're becoming sort of valets, and that only works if you give it personal information, but based off of the rise of those products and services from Google, Nest, and the like, Amazon, and so forth, it tells me that people really like it, but they won't do it if you get the temperature somewhere that you're not, or that you get a very generic message, or that everything is just sort of benign and banal, right? It has to be very specific.
And it does seem at the moment that there's big trends around using technology such as AI and machine learning to offer those personalised experiences that you mentioned. And I've seen IBM and Adobe both say at their conferences that experiences are more important than products now. In fact, they are the new product. And many businesses are also trying to deal with the fallout of GDPR in a post-Cambridge Analytica world and that increasing desire for privacy. And I think there's going to be a lot of people listening, or a lot of businesses listening, that it seems that businesses are caught between a rock and a hard place, because on one side it's consumers that are driving that need for personalisation with their rising expectation levels on Spotify and Netflix, and they take this with them everywhere. But if they try to do it too, a business could be deemed creepy. So I mean, what is the answer, and are these the kind of challenges that are people coming to you with?
That is exactly why we exist, and they're exactly the kind of challenges that people come to us to solve. And so, I think you've absolutely are spot on with the problem or the dilemma. The dilemma is people want personalization. Personalization requires personal information. Yeah. That's the Gordian knot that you have to cut in order to deliver that service. And so what we do is we work with, brands, typically large enterprise brands, to say, give us all the data that you've collected. We'll centralize it into one customer profile per customer. We'll store that profile in the cloud. And then you have to use that individual's historical record, which is everything they've purchased, where they've purchased it, and so on and so forth, plus what they're doing right now. They just opened the app. They just visited a store. They just put something in a cart. And then based off of that past and present view, you have to deliver an experience that makes that data feel like it's been put to good use. In other words, I'm happy that you know what I've purchased. If I purchased a pair of 3230 Levi's, and you say that this shirt will go perfectly with those Levi's, and maybe there's a discount if you make that purchase today, and it's one click because my credit card is already stored, and so on and so forth, and Amazon is quite good at this. Most people are going to accept those terms. If you take my personal information, recommend something that has no bearing on anything I've ever purchased, it's obviously not intended for me, it's the same offer that everybody else gets, then I'm thinking, why am I allowing you access to my information? I'm going to shut that down.
And do you have any other examples there of how brands can and probably are delivering experiences that essentially make customers want to shop more often, spend more, and ultimately share more as well?
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite customers here, all customers are equally amazing, of course. But, one use case that I really, really like is Kimberly Clark and Huggies. So before we started working with Huggies, their program was very kind of analog, I think you might say, where you would buy diapers and you would cut out these sort of UPC codes on the packaging, and you'd store them up in a box or something, and then you'd have to sit down at your computer and you'd have to manually enter all these giant PIN codes of these random numbers in order to get credit for purchases that you've made, and that credit would result in some commensurate discount on the next thing that you bought, right? Yeah. So after working with these guys, and they're really sort of visionary in the way that they treat customers, I think, after working with Huggies, what we've done is we've made it so as soon as you make a purchase of diapers and anything else that you bought at the store, you simply take a picture of that receipt, upload it into the Huggies app, and then you'll get credit for whatever diapers that you've purchased. So that process just became so much more streamlined, so much more automated, so much less manual. And if you think about it, who is more sort of time-strapped and stressed out than parents with children in diapers? So it really works beautifully on that level. But you can also, on the basis of that receipt, know, like, okay, this is where that customer shops. So we can send offers that are sort of tailored to that area. In other words, it's the dead of winter where that customer is, so we can send something that's appropriate for winter. Or it's the dead of summer in another place. We can talk about swimming or little swimmers or stuff like that. So you can just make it very specific and appropriate and very what we call frictionless for the customer. But the other thing is you can do things like you can reward customers for things that aren't just transactions. The problem with a lot of loyalty programs is it says, if you do X, I'll do Y. You buy 4, I'll give you the 5th for free. So what Huggies has figured out using our platform and other technology is that If people watch a video, for example, on like how to baby proof your house or how to be safe around water for babies, how to, babies' first steps, babies starting with solid food, and so on and so forth, you can actually reward people for engaging with your content. And those rewards are really tangible in that you can get discounts on things like diapers, but you also get sort of an education. And so people are very loyal to Huggies, not because of this sort of points dynamic, but because they are delivering a frictionless experience and a lot of amazing content that helps them parent better. And I think that's super rewarding, if you'll pardon the expression, for us, for them, for parents, for everybody. It's kind of where it's going. So I'm going to tell you some things about me, and then you're going to put that to use to deliver me a better experience. And I think that's the dynamic.
So how do you see CDP transforming brands and how they will affect consumers and their expectations? And I suppose also those that don't adopt these kind of platforms, they're going to fall behind quite quickly, aren't they?
I do think so. I think for a long time, if we're honest, marketing has suffered from a kind of an on to the next mindset where you acquire a customer, you sort of win a customer, and then you sort of frankly kind of move on and you try to win and acquire other customers. So what CDPs and to a degree what GDPR have done is they've really put an emphasis on how can we deliver experiences rooted in customer data that makes each and every customer want to continue to do business with us, to advocate for us, which ironically brings down our acquisition costs. How do we deliver those kinds of experiences rooted in data that makes people want to do business with us moving forward? That's exactly what the CDP does. And the more you lean into the CDP, the more satisfied your customers will be, the less leaky your bucket will be, the less your acquisition costs will be, the more advocacy you'll get, the more loyalty you'll have, and so on and so forth. So it's really shaping, not marketing, it's shaping the dynamics of how businesses go to market. From customer service to frontline retail employees, if you know what the customer's doing at all times, up to the second, you can deliver a really good experience. It's only when you don't know who you're dealing with or what they've done with you historically that you deliver unfavorable experiences. And we're remedying that.
Now, we've probably both seen those tech articles and marketing articles that's with the suggestion that AI is going to kill lots of jobs. You've got the robots there with the red eyes. So can we bust another myth here that the rise of AI doesn't mean the fall of marketing jobs?
Alas, I don't think it does. Machines are getting ever smarter and faster, but they're not yet sentient. So I don't think that we're all going to go the way of the hula hoop or the dinosaur. Although I actually think quite the opposite. And it used to be not very long ago when I started in this business that you'd get the smartest people that you could. You'd sort of get in a room or you'd go for a walk and you'd kind of come back with these two stone tablets, if you would, with, okay, this is the idea. And then you'd implement it. And then you'd comb through available data for evidence that supports your hypothesis, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot to work with. So you said, okay, I think we should do X. And now let me look for data that supports that X was the right call, which preserves my job. Now that dynamic has been completely inverted, where you don't really make a strategy. Each and every day or every hour, you're sort of combing through the data and you're making these little adjustments based off of the most current information. And so it's not a set it and forget it marketing mindset anymore. It's an always on 24/7, 365 mindset, which I think is going to require, more marketers doing more work than ever before, because the game plan is going to change on a daily or hourly basis. That's point one. And point two is, with the rise of things like CDP, with the rise of machine learning and AI, you're essentially making a marketing plan for each and every customer, and you're deploying it at a moment's notice based off of what that customer is doing, not what you want to do. So it's going to require, a lot of smart people into the future, as near as I can tell.
Now, like you hinted at earlier, SessionM does work with some of the largest organisations around the globe, including enterprise brands such as Nike, L'Oreal, Kimberly Clark, Coca Cola, TGI Fridays, and the list goes on and on. But can you share a use case where SessionM has handled one of those complex, large-scale personal data sets and then offer a kind of before and after picture, just so listeners can understand the power of that technology and the difference you can make?
Yeah, so I think for each of those brands, the use case is kind of similar in the sense that those brands used to be more calendar-based. So you'd have your Father's Day, your Mother's Day, your semi-annual sale, your dads and grads, whatever the case may be. So you'd have your calendar, and everyone would essentially be marketed to in the same way during those promotional windows. So there's a number of problems with that. The first thing is you might be, to coin a phrase, selling dog food to cat lovers, right? So you might be pushing something that the majority of people want, but a significant minority either already have or have no interest in whatsoever. So if you treat everybody the same, you run that risk. That's the first thing. The second thing is you might be discounting to somebody completely willing to pay full price. Just because you sent them a discount that they really didn't intend to act on until you sent it to them. So why do that? Why not, in the post-SessionM, in the post-CDP world, you can treat every customer as an individual. You can put a discount value that's commensurate with lifetime spend or what you think the lifetime potential of that customer could be. Or if you haven't seen someone in a while and you fear sort of churn, you can put an aggressive offer into the marketplace to reactivate that customer. There's a number of things you can do intelligently and in real time on a one-to-one basis that you couldn't do prior. And I think, that Kimberly Clark use case is a pretty good example where, everybody gets the same thing regardless of, it's just purely based off of how many diapers you buy. Whereas now, based off of what kind of diapers you buy, where you buy them, what size, in terms of what age group you buy, what other kinds of content you consume from Kimberly Clark, you can have a much more thoughtful, intelligent experience that's delivered to each customer individually at the appropriate time. There's no more sort of global sales that drive the entire marketing calendar. There still, of course, are global sales, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It's now much more about one-to-one marketing instead of one-to-many.
So what's next for SessionM? Is there anything else that you can share with us today?
Yeah, I think that the GDPR thing has really cast a bright light on customer data, which is good for us because we treat it like gold and all of our customers do as well. So that's good for us. And the other thing, is I kind of mentioned earlier, is it's really escalated the conversation. It's elevated the conversation to the really top of the house level where this isn't sort of a marketing thing. So how can we market better? That's clearly a part of it, but it's how can we deliver customer service better? When someone calls, if you really want to antagonize them, ask them their name and to restate their problem 3 or 4 times as you transfer them about the organization, right? Yeah. That's like the classic red flag in front of a bull thing. So with the CDP, that customer service agent that has nothing to do with marketing can see who's on the other line, what they've purchased, what their historical exchange has been with the brand, and based off of that, they can handle the situation intelligently to their satisfaction and to the customer's satisfaction. So that has nothing to do with marketing. Same with frontline store operations. If someone comes up to the register, scans a personalized one-to-one coupon, I can see who that person is, what they've bought historically, and on the basis of that, I can do everything from as pedestrian as greet them differently, to make product recommendations in real time, to suggest that they come, for a follow-up visit at a point down the line. So it really is elevated customer data out of the sole domain of marketing and really broadened the scope across the organization.
Now, you've talked at length there today about many, many problems that both businesses are struggling with and also keeping CEOs up late at night. So I've got to ask, for anyone that is listening that are experiencing any of these problems and looking for those solutions, can you just remind them of where they can find you guys online and also contact a member of your team if they have any questions?
Absolutely. So we are at SessionM.com, SessionM.com. And my personal email is preynolds, REYNOLDS, @SessionM.com. And I would look forward to having that conversation with you, because we really are doing important work for really cool clients around the globe, not just in the US. We have many, many international clients, and we'd love to discuss it with you.
Excellent. Well, there's been so many big talking points today, but I'm also glad that we've busted a few myths around AI and around GDPR and CDPs. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on today and talk about those solutions. Thank you.
The pleasure was mine. Go Lions.
Once again, so many great talking points from Patrick there. What a great guest. Because as consumers, we are demanding the same experiences that we have on Netflix, Spotify and Amazon, because these are our expectations and we take those expectations with us everywhere. But if a brand gets that wrong and bombards relative strangers with generic messages, then your brand is going to be deemed creepy. But the key takeaway here is there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach to personalisation, and it has to be relevant to the consumer and treat them as an individual. If I look at myself, personally, I'm happy with the trade-off of giving a brand more personal information about me if it improves my experience, if it improves my home entertainment, if it improves my shopping and makes it more painless and quicker and seamless. But if I purchased one item from you 10 years ago and you keep coming back and asking me personal questions, I'm going to be suspicious. But this is exactly how it would be if you would approach me on the street. It's like human relationships. You have to build trust. You have to build relationships. And this is something that SessionM seem to be doing in the right way. But over to you. I mean, are you excited about a new era of trust and transparency and building relationships and removing generic marketing messages and spam? Or are you not quite convinced? I want to hear both sides of the coin here. And I'm sure wherever you're listening to this in the world, you're going to have experiences on both sides of that, both positive and negative. So I want to hear them. So feel free to email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes about today's episode, about the topics we've discussed, about any recent episode, or hey, even maybe you just went to see David Byrne and you want to share it with someone. But doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Because we've just reached the end of another episode. How did that happen so quick? But more than anything, just a genuine thank you for tuning into this show every single day. I really do appreciate it. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.